Hey everybody, today we are going to start a new unit, and this new unit is about the things that connect us to our government. We call these things linkage institutions. So let me warm us up a little bit. On the board behind me, we've got a drawing. It's an amazing drawing. On this side of what you can consider a big, cliff or something with water in it and a bad shark in it, Anyway, we are on this side. That's us. And way over here is our government. It's impossible for us to reach this place because we can't just float across. The government feels inaccessible. What we need is something to connect us to the government. So, what do? Of course, we build a bridge. But any old bridge won't just stand up. We need things to support this bridge. We need things to help make sure that when we try to get to our government, we succeed in reaching it. And so what we have are pillars. 4 pillars, to be precise. And so these 4 pillars are going to be the things that connect us or enable us to connect to our government. These will be what we call our linkage institutions. And so, when we talk about this right now, you might want to get this piece of paper out. It's Unit 8, Linkage Institutions, Part 1, Political Parties. So we're going to start up here at the top. All right. Wasn't this a good drawing, though, by the way? This shark, I spent 25 minutes drawing that shark. You can tell. It's pretty good. I had some air bubbles, but then whatever, I erased them. You don't care. All right, so let's get down to business. Here we go. So you might consider, what is it that connects us to your friends? Like, you might say, oh, well, I'm in sports with my friends. I'm in, I see my friends at lunch, or I'm in class with my friends, or I follow my friends on Snapchat or Instagram. Those are the things that link you to your friends. You spend time with them, you interact with them that way. When we talk about our government and what links us to our government, it's often a little more difficult to think of the ways that we literally connect to them. What do we have in our society and in our world that helps us interact with them, learn about what they're doing, help them learn about what we want, so on and so forth. And so let's go ahead and talk about what these things are. These linkage institutions, which are anything that links or connects us to our government, well, there's 4 specific things. So these would be the 4 pillars of the bridge behind me. The first is political parties. We're going to talk about that today, but what we'll see is that political parties are groups of people who join together to try to get more power and influence the government. The second is what we call a special interest group, similar to a political party, except their goal, or maybe not their goal, but their method of influencing the government is different from that of a political party. Number 3 are elections. Of course, when we vote, that's us interacting and choosing who becomes part of our government. That's a great way that we are connected to it. And 4 is media. The media is sometimes considered the 4th branch of government. Executive, legislative, judicial, and then media, in the way that it can influence public policy and opinion on many different issues. So what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in to number 1, a political party. So we should ask ourselves first, what exactly is a political party? Well, that's a great question. A political party is simply a group of people who want to do 2 things. Number 1, they want to first of all win elections in order to hold public office. And number 2, once they hold public office, they want to impact laws and policies in our country. Now, obviously, different political parties have different goals. And so that's what we're going to kind of get into in here in a minute. This is not the first time we've talked about political parties in this class. Of course, you may remember the political spectrum, which has appeared behind me. You've got your liberal views on the left, your conservative views on the right. We have 2 main political parties that represent sort of the more moderate left and right. The Democrats here with this little donkey symbol. Hold on, you got to zoom in on this because it's pretty good. Look at that guy. And then you got your Republicans here, which I realized after I wrote this on the board a second ago, I accidentally misspelled it and it says Republicans. But I thought that was funny, so I left it. I left it. But you know it's Republicans. I shouldn't joke. Now, here's the thing. We want to see that there's actually 2 different kinds of political parties. The first type is what you call an election-oriented political party. These are parties that focus first and foremost on just winning elections. So we see the Democrats and the Republicans would fit into this category. What you can tell is that their candidates typically tend to be fairly moderate, like we know. They're well-groomed, they seem popular, they're very electable, and because of this, they draw a lot of voters to these two different parties. The Republicans and the Democrats have 43 million for the Democrats and then 30 million registered members. That's a lot of Americans who fall into one of these two camps. So they are focused on winning elections. Now, I mean, look at these two guys. Now, these are from some previous election years, obviously, but President Obama, presidential candidate Mitt Romney, these guys are well-groomed. They represent what you picture in your mind as a presidential human being, right? They are always on their A game, so to speak. And that's because they represent a party that wants to win an election, and that's one way to accomplish it. Now, we're not going to get into the more recent election because you could argue that there was some changes from your typical candidate when President Trump ran for office, but we kind of talked about that, and let's just kind of speak in more generalities. Now, the other thing that we could talk about is the other kind of a party. The type 2 is what we call an issue-oriented party. And these are political parties that focus first and foremost on just trying to change things in our society. Now, these parties tend to be a bit more extreme. They tend to be a bit more drastic and raw. They can shock you. They seem maybe a little bit scary, maybe a little bit unappealing at times, a little less like you want to really vote for them because you're not quite sure what they're going to do. These also, as a result of that, tend to not be as popular. They have lower membership, and so we sometimes refer to these types of parties as minor parties, or you also hear them called third parties because, Democrats and Republicans are the first two main parties, so that any other party after them is considered a third party. Great examples would be the Constitution Party, the Libertarian Party, the Green Party as well. These are some pretty common examples, and we've even had some of those candidates run in this most recent election and do better than in years past, partly because of the way the Democrats and the Republicans were kind of shaken up. Here's some examples. There's even an American Nazi Party, which is, that's scary. These guys don't seem very electable. Tell you what, if you ask me when I come back, ask me to play a clip from The Rent is Too Darn High, and I changed a word there. Because this guy, Jimmy McMillan, is awesome. He's an example of an issue-oriented party. Maybe you've seen some clips. If you want to, go to YouTube, type in The Rent is Too, and then it's the D word, okay? D-A-M-N, high. The Rent is Too high. And you got some funny clips. Use your best school-appropriate discretion as you choose which clips to watch. Okay, now here we go. We're going to transition out of that into what we call party systems. There's many different formats you can have for your government in a number of parties all around the world. So some countries have a system like ours, which we call a two-party system. What this means is simply that elections tend to be dominated by just two main parties. Now, this doesn't mean there are only two, but it's just that there are two that tend to win every time. So in the United States, obviously, that's your Democrats and your Republicans. So we are considered a two-party system. In other countries, like in the United Kingdom or many other European countries, you have a multi-party system. This means that many parties share the outcome of elections. It's not like you always have, just two. You might have 3 or 4 or 5 different parties who kind of at any given moment could win a landslide victory in an election. And in the past especially, and in other countries around the world that are a bit scary, you have perhaps a one-party system. One-party systems is when the government outlaws all other political parties besides the ruling party. And this is common in places where life is very ugly and oppressive, like in dictatorships like we see in the past, like in Nazi Germany, in the Soviet Union. Nowadays, in China, you can only be part of the Communist Party. Cuba is still that way, although there are some changes. North Korea, obviously, is a very intense example of a one-party system in there as well. That's party systems. Now, a question that you might ask is, why do we just have two parties? In fact, a lot of people argue we should have more. We should have more parties because after all, if you don't like the two main candidates, which a lot of people complained about in 2016, I wish there was some better third, fourth, fifth party candidates that we could really have some chances of winning. So why do we just have two? Well, there's some simple answers. The first simple answer is that, most issues tend to be yes or no, or up or down or for or against. And so it makes sense to have a Democrat and a Republican Party. You have 2 points of view on most issues, so you have 2 political parties. It kind of just lends itself to having 2 choices. Also, it's tradition. For the past, I don't even know how many years. When did the Republicans win? Abraham Lincoln, 1860. This goes back over hundreds of years, almost hundreds, like 100 if years of having just the Democrats and the Republicans. And so there are things in our government that kind of set them up to succeed and keep other parties from doing as well. A lot of people don't think that's right, but that's the way it is. Tradition is hard to change, especially when the people making the rules are the people keeping themselves in power. Grumble, grumble, grumble. So here's what we're going to do. All of that was intro and quick details about political parties. What I'm going to ask you to do is take your paper and flip it to the back. And what you're going to see is there are 8 questions. The first 7 questions are totally off the top of your head. I want you just to sort of think and reflect and write some answers down. The 8th question, I want you to read a little, it's a PDF, I'm going to put it online, and I want you to read through that and then complete the question that's right there, okay? Now, if you are able to get this done today in class, great, you probably will. If you can't get it done in class, then it is homework, so that way tomorrow we can quickly talk about that and move on to the next topic in here, okay? Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope everything's okay, and I will see you later.